One, and you're live, Chairman.
Oh, there, that's better, isn't it? You can hear me now. Correct use of the microphones, members and officers. It is important that when you wish to speak, you turn on your microphone, and when you've finished speaking, you turn it off. Just like I didn't do then. And I no longer have to draw your attention to the different levels within the chamber because they have disappeared, confusingly. So, there we are. Tara, may I have apologies for absence, please?
Good evening, Chairman. Thank you. Yes, apologies been received from Councillor Bassinger and Councillor Skeens. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 3, minutes. It is recommended that the very brief indeed minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of October 2021, found on pages 5 to 6, are approved as a true and accurate record. Agreed?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I think we have agreement there. Super. Thank you very much. Item 4, declarations of interest to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraphs 6 to 8 inclusive of the Code of Conduct for members. And members are reminded that if any interests arise during the meeting, they should disclose them then. Any? No?
Nope.
No, marvellous. I can advise that we have not received any submissions from members of the public this evening, so I will move swiftly on to the Maldon District Community Safety Partnership update, which can be found on pages 7 to 32. So, Mr. Clark, I do believe that's you.
Thank you, Chair. Purpose of tonight is to give a brief overview of what the Community Safety Partnership has been delivering over the last year. I will not go into full detail because I'm hoping members will have opportunity to read the written report in advance. So I'll just go through the key areas. So on the 3.1, it goes through the statutory duties, and it really gives an overview that the partnership has gone through a data review exercise and risk matrix exercise to determine what the priorities will be for this coming year, i.e. 2022-23. There are going to be no major changes. So the headline priorities, which are under 3.12, will remain the same as they have done for the previous years, but there's been some slight changes to the narratives around there. So the additions on the narratives are around additions around high harm offences, around domestic violence, particularly high risk domestic violence, violence against women and girls, and also as the partnership we've been having some more discussions around social isolation and poor mental health, and that links quite nicely with the Maldon Live Well group as well. So that's really just to highlight what the priorities will be for the partnership for the coming year. Going down onto the next page, I won't dwell on this too much because 3.14 really goes into the policing update, and I'll leave that for Chief Inspector Steve Scott Haynes to go through. I believe he's probably got the February update, so the figures might have changed slightly. Well, perhaps they haven't. But Maldon still is in a favourable position when compared with other areas in Essex. And members will have a copy of Appendix 1, which is the January figures to review. It's worth pointing out there that as a district council, we're still getting quite a high number of reports around antisocial behaviour, but not as much as we were just after lockdown. 3.15 highlights what the partnership's been doing around preventing violent extremism. I chair the Essex Prevent Delivery Group. Got the next meeting on Tuesday of next week. You'll see that the Q3 counter-terrorism local profile was delivered on the 22nd of February. And recently the terrorism alert has just been lowered to substantial because it had been severe for a number of months. Sort of work that links in with this is the work that we do with the Independent Advisory Group, and also some of the work we've been doing around the Protect duty. So that continues. Also we do tend to consider hate crime at that particular meeting, because there is a clear link between hate crime and preventing violent extremism.
Yeah, absolutely.
3.16 highlights where we are with the Public Space Protection Order. The consultation has been completed for that. The next steps for that is to go to final report to go to Community Services Committee. Then it will require a full sign-off by full council prior to it going into force. I think the only other areas which we're looking at is the notices which require to be displayed as part of that Public Space Protection Order. So I'm hoping that this will be live in spring this year.
Cool.
I hope.
Thank you.
That's
we
with the
have
current
question.
programme.
I was going
that's
to
where
ask
it's going to be.
I was going to ask, what's the timeline?
I haven't got the exact dates for what committee it's going to, but I'd like to think that it will only be a period of 2 to 3 months before it goes live.
Excellent.
Cool. Thank you. Brilliant.
3.2 goes on around the update of the Police and Crime Commissioner. As we know, Mr Hurst was re-elected last year and is now done an extension to the Police and Crime Plan, which goes to 2024. That's available online. It's got 12 different priorities, but very similar to what we were looking at the previous plan. Again, I won't go into detail because some of those areas are around roads policing, and we have Mr Byatt from roads policing present tonight, who can go into much more detail than myself. What you will see is there has been a small increase in the precept for policing and fire again, and that will see about another 200 officers coming into the force. And again, I won't go into detail about that because Mr Scott Haynes can give an overview of where we anticipate or what the local impact will be for Maldon District. So further on there, you'll see the work which we've been doing with the rural engagement team and how that works quite nicely with the community protection team at Maldon District Council. And you also see that the Maldon District Council part funded the jet skis which are being used by the Marine Unit. And if you check social media, they get very good reviews of the work they're doing around policing our coastline.
I do hope they're flushing all that salt water out the engines so they don't seize up like the previous one.
On the 3.24, just highlighting the work of the Essex Violence and Vulnerability Unit. I sit as the district rep on the operations board for that. Pleased to announce, I know I haven't put in this report, that the full funding will be received for the Home Office for the coming year. That's really good news. So a lot of the works around violence and vulnerability will continue for the coming year. And then 3.3 gives an update on the hub and the current work which we're doing. I have under 3.31, there's a copy of the Maldon Community Safety Partnership Plan on a page for members to look at, just to doesn't give it in all detail, but it gives members an idea of what we deliver each year. The last couple of years have been somewhat strange, but we're hoping to get back to some sort of normality this coming year, particularly the work which we're doing in the schools. 3.33 highlights the many meetings attended by the team, whether it's MACE or whether it's the Middlesex Children's Partnership Board. You'll see there's an extensive amount of meetings with the partnership attend and represent Maldon District on that. 3.3 I've highlighted a particularly good piece of work. The the community engagement officers, community safety engagement officers, which was a post which came into place last year. Our representative is PC Rosie Smith. She's been doing a great job in the district. She does a lot of joint patrolling with the community protection team and the Trier service role, which looks after the Dengie. So there's a lot of work going on there. Produces a very good newsletter each month, which is circulated to members. We continue to do some joint work, and some of the works we've been doing recently is around in Southminster, Bradwell and Heybridge, looking at areas of concern. 3.34 just gives a focus of where we've been doing a lot of our work. A lot of it's been, when you look at things like antisocial behaviour and hotspots, tend to be around the High Street, Promenade Park and Hive Quay, but also some of the other areas, particularly when we've had the couple of lockdowns. There's been lots of young people, understandably so, going into public spaces. That has reduced somewhat, and a lot of work's been done with these young people through the youth service and other agencies. I did flag up on the 3.34 at the bottom there some of the work, and this prompted to do some more work around social isolation, whereby at our last strategic meeting, the station manager Carl Pullin attended and gave a really good overview of some case studies of fire fatalities in Maldon district, and both of these victims were socially isolated and had hoarding tendencies. So we're linking in with the Maldon Live Well group to see what we can do around social isolation and how we can work with other agencies to try and prevent such tragedies happening again. 3.35, you'll see I spoke about the work we do in schools. Last year was a very different year where we delivered Crucial Crew virtually to Year 6 students. So that included a pre-recorded drama around exploitation and knife crime, which was about 40 minutes long. The schools got to view it, and then they had an hour facilitated session with the actors to sort of tease out what was happening and how people can make different choices. We did the evaluation October time, and the schools want us back live this year. So, so we've been welcomed back with open arms. What we're planning to do is work with Tick Box Productions today, who will do the live drama in the schools, and then the partnership will be there to speak with young people as a result of that. Other pieces of work, and this isn't all of the work we do, I've just highlighted some of them. Been doing a lot of work around public engagement, where we've been doing some bike marking. We do have another event, which you'll see there, planned for the 8th of April in Promenade Park, where invitations have gone out to a number of partners. Again, we'll be doing bike marking, but we'll also be having other agencies there to talk to people. And you'll see that we done a senior safety event at Maldon Football Club on the 4th of October, where we had about, I think there's 82 attendees to that particular event. And I think the highlight of that event was the seated exercise, which was delivered by the CCG. You'll see that the youth service, or the youth strategy group has commissioned a professional drama called Unacceptable, which has been going into the schools. I know that's been delivered at Ormiston Rivers Academy, and I think a revised date is being done for the Plume, which has been quite well taken by the schools. And then we just highlighted some of the other work which the community protection team are doing around the district using TrueCam. So at the moment we've got working with 18 parishes at 45 different locations, and that's linked up with Mr. Pipe's team through the Safer Essex Roads Partnership. And I won't go into all of these in detail, but you'll see that just gives a flavour of some of the work that we're doing. Things like the Just Play Football Initiative, which we do Monday night at the Plume with the community protection officers and young people. So that's just a very quick overview that gives members a flavour of the work we've been doing. I think next year will be very different, because we'll be able to hopefully, touch wood, be able to get into the schools and do more events, which have been restricted for the last 2 years because of the pandemic. So it's for members to note and take questions, Chair. If
Thank
that's,
you.
that's the correct procedure.
I'm pleased to say that we now are talking to Ormiston Rivers Academy, whereas previously there have been some issues around getting in there. I am meeting with the head, Joe Williams, along with Lauren Green, the youth commissioner, and Gary Dyer from the community engagement team on Friday. And so far the overtures I've had from Miss Williams is she's very, very keen to do some multi-agency working, open up, make the school community hub that we would like it to be, and actually to work with other agencies. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to get some good stuff going with Ormiston.
Fantastic.
And you guys, hopefully. Questions, anyone? For Spencer.
A good presentation, and yeah, I mean, you're doing some great work in Maldon and Cambridge, where these two are from, so that's very close to our hearts. And yeah, I've seen the place around Cambridge, and you're doing some good work in there as well, so pleased with that.
Thank you, Councillor Hubner. Councillor Rose. Oh,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a good report when I finally got into the thing. I got in a bit of a mucking fuddle. Yeah, I keep reporting to, well, not so much one-on-one. I tend to grab any policeman I see walking along. And I think I got the rural team. A young girl come round a couple of days ago and reported where these drug dealers were dealing from, giving new addresses and car registrations and things like that, like you do. As a good neighbour. But I've noticed that we're getting a few more of them gas cylinders now in the walkway between the plantation hall and going on to Hillary Close. This only seems to be the last week I've seen about 5 or 6 in there now. But I mean, the young lad who's dealing, I better not mention names because it's a public thing, isn't it? But basically, he backwards and forwards past mine like a yo-yo. Off to have cameras put in my kitchen and things like that. But what sort of response do they do? Does it just go into the intelligence and they take action from there?
Councillor, yes. So please always report these types of activities, whether it's to the police or the community protection team. We were doing joint patrols only a few weeks ago in that particular area, and we have got some interventions which we're looking to deliver there. I won't say about them publicly at the moment, but it's something we are looking to improve that in that particular area and working with the young people in that area. So please continue to report those, and we are aware of some of the issues, and we have increased patrols in that particular area.
So I mean, I actually watched at least 2, well, the guy's either on one of them really fast scooters or walking around. And I mean, I know what address he lives at, and he's dealing with a guy called, I better not say that either, do I?
No.
But it's to do with our ex-councillor, shall I say.
Yeah.
It's his nephew. I mean, the police have raided there enough times. But this other young lad is dealing on his behalf. And I mean, they're doing it in broad daylight. I watched a guy when I was stood talking to one of the caretakers about 2 days ago, and the guy sitting on a bench, someone come up, shook his hand, and away they went. I mean, they're not even hiding it. Sometimes they use that shelter down at the bottom end of the field, but most of the time it's just either turns up on a bike or whatever, quick handshake, and away they go. But I mean, it's rife down there. It's because I lost a relative to drugs that I'm pretty intense on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I mean, what I say, obviously, the more information we've got, the more I can direct patrols into the area. I know that we have had a number of operations due to community intelligence, which have led us to make some significant arrests and recoveries of drugs. We're not going to get everyone, as much as I wish we could, because sadly some of them don't have the items on them, etc. But we will continue executing warrants, and we do it regularly where we have enough evidence to do so. So the more information we get, the more I'm able to get those warrants and smash down some doors.
I think it was the rural team that come round in that van, well, not a van, but you know what I mean, pick up something.
So
Just come round and pick up things and basically got everything from inside. I gave you addresses of where they knew from. I couldn't give them surnames because we're not on that sort of talking terms.
yeah, any vehicle that you see with rural team on the side is that is your community, but your response policing team for Maldon.
Well, we actually had one of the community guys that comes out to the parish. And I got him to, he was delivering an envelope for someone. And I said, well, if you go over there, so there's a certain coloured car that you need to get a registration plate for. I doubt he didn't know where he was going, but he's done that as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hume, you had another question?
Yes, I'm pleased to say, report any crime. I'm also a crime stopper. So that's another avenue that we can go down as well. And Anne knows about that. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Councillor Mize.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On from what, sorry, force of habit, I'm afraid. Misgender me, would you? Okay, you're going to be a chair as well. I was going on from what Councillor Beale was saying about lads dealing. Perhaps have a look at Abbey Turning. I come past there on a very regular basis at various times of the day, but particularly sort of 4 to 7 o'clock. Why are people down there in different cars and they have no relationship? Some of them are doing, dogging. I didn't say that. Are doing other activities, but some are clearly there for other purposes. So that possibly needs to be highlighted. I wanted to just talk very briefly about Neighbourhood Watch and where we're at with Neighbourhood Watch in the district. And also the event that is coming up on the 8th of April, not any other day in April. And if you could just give us a little bit of information about that, please. Thank you.
This is cool, sir, Councillor. So we'll start with the event on the 8th of April. Claire Hanrahan in the community safety teams organising that. It's gone out to a number of partners, including Crime Stoppers, you'll be pleased to know. So we hope to...
I think Crime Stoppers are very keen on being there.
Yep. So we did a similar event, I think it was July last year, where we done the bike marking. Had lots of different agencies there. I think we had the police cars there. So the youngsters like to come and sit in the police car and play with the car and etc. So it's the same. It's one of these community engagement events which can only really be done face to face, and it enables the public to come and speak with a variety of partners. So people like the youth service will be there, and it's a good opportunity for us as a partnership to touch base with people and see what they want. So when we talk about young people in areas causing problems, we need to determine why and what they need. And the Essex Voluntary Service for Young People have just produced a really good listening project, which they've done for the last 3 years, where they actually speak to young people about what their concerns are and what they actually want. So things like, surprisingly, young people want better street lighting and more CCTV cameras, but they also want more youth provision, more provision which is open later, more variety. So
Well, there has been a 73% cut in funding to the youth service in the last 10 years. 73%.
So
So it's not surprising, really, that they're out on the streets. Sorry.
that's right, and that's why it's so important that we speak with people at these events, you know, and that's why we deliver things like the Just Play Football initiative on Monday nights, because we know that, you know, it doesn't cost the people anything. They come along, we regularly get 20 young people, and it's not just about playing football, it's having that relationship with a trusted adult.
Absolutely.
Sometimes they can't speak to their parents about issues, and you know, so that's the sort of thing we're trying to encourage. So hopefully a bit closer to the event, we'll know who's attending and how we can get that out. So that's a Friday, 8th of April at Promenade Park. Neighbourhood Watch. Neighbourhood Watch, like a lot of voluntary groups, has during the pandemic has been difficult. We did successfully migrate Neighbourhood Watch to Microsoft Teams, like most of our other groups were either ran on Zoom or Teams. We did see some of the membership drop off. We're beginning to see members come back now. What we have done is Chelmsford and Maldon Neighbourhood Watch are sort of merged now in terms of the funding and the secretarial support to it, but we still have a separate chair for Chelmsford and a separate chair for Maldon. So Mandy Chapman remains the Maldon chair at Neighbourhood Watch. I think what we're looking to do, speaking to Claire and our team this week, is we're going to try and get some face-to-face meetings back soon. Some of these do work well on Teams, but I think
Needs to be a balance between the two.
I think, and that's with
It's not all of them.
with most
Yeah,
meetings.
some.
You know, some work really well, but that balance is really important. So hopefully we'll get some more sign up on the 8th of April. They will be there trying to get more sign up for members. So continue to do the work. We still get the reports. We still send the reports out to members so they can make local people aware of what's happening, which is also important. So it's there'll be a new drive for it in 2022.
Brilliant. Thank you. You can come back and make it concise, please. Councillor.
Well, all I'm going to say is I would like to see as many members attending this event.
Why not? We've got our own event happening in Riverside Park, so
Oh no, that's okay. But certainly I should be encouraging all Maldon-based and some of the periphery villages.
Time stopped there, aren't
they'll be there.
Excellent. That's see, concise. They
Try and keep it away. Thank you very much, everybody. That's great. So, okay, I am now going to hand over to Chief Inspector Scott Haynes for an update on the police performance, please. Thank you. Right there. That couldn't have been timed better, could it? Bear with.
Can you
Right, perhaps.
Thank you.
Perhaps I might hand over Mr. Pipe to you then, while Chief Inspector Scott Haynes is dealing with the emergency, if I may,
Okay.
without putting you on the
No,
spot.
absolutely fine. And I did intend to send over a presentation, but our systems, Essex Police, have been down since 1 o'clock, so couldn't
No,
spend
worries.
it.
It's a day of
Sadly.
computer glitches, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So I'm just going to give you, first of all, my name's Adam Pipe. I'm the head of roads policing for Essex Police, which is traffic and old money. And I look after 230 officers and staff across the command. Just going to set out what roads policing is all about and what we actually have at our disposal, and a bit around your district, and then talk around what we're going to be trying to do in the future around something called Vision Zero. So we've got 86 constables over 2 roads policing bases. You're covered out of Stanway with 43 constables, 12 sergeants and 2 inspectors. So just to put that into context, Stanway base in effect covers the whole of the LPA North. So it's a massive geographical area with, at any time, there could be just 1 in 7 officers on duty. So it's quite a significant geographical area for a relatively small number of officers. They'll attend on average about 1,700 incidents a month, most of them road related, but they do perform a role that supports local policing as well. Roads policing now is not all about traffic offences, road safety. It's very much a part of that. But roads policing is also about disrupting criminality and criminal use of the road. So we know that most offences and most harm that comes to the district is very much through the use of a car, whether it be burglary, and even like violence. It's how Class A is brought into the county, into these districts as well. So roads policing is very much about disrupting criminality, but also trying to make our roads safe. And that's what we're all about. So the other base at Chigwell, with again 43 officers, covers really everything else other than the LPA North. But you can again see that geographically it's a massive area. I also look after a team at Southwood and Ferris, which is the road crime team, and their focus is very much on disrupting that criminal aspect of people that use the roads, with 14 officers and 2 sergeants. I've got a commercial vehicle unit at South Woodham, which is 4 officers, and again, their focus very much on the safety of commercial vehicles, heavy goods vehicles, but now they're very much into organised crime, particularly immigration crime, modern day slavery, human trafficking. And they get called out regularly to the lorries that are coming into the UK with people into the back of them. I've got a team of 14 special constables at Woodham as well, and also oversee road deaths with the team based at Boreham. So a relatively small team. We did suffer during the periods of reductions in policing, but we're back on the up, which is really, really good news. But every day remains a challenge when we have to sort of respond to lots and lots of incidents on the network, road traffic collisions, but then also try and provide that preventative message as well. So we're very lucky in Essex that we have road safety both on the force plan and the PFCC's plan, which is absolutely fantastic news. There are many forces across the country that don't have that, and road safety and roads policing is not at the moment on the government strategic policing plan, although that is likely to change. If we look at what happens in the Maldon district, so if I tell you last year we had about 790 people killed or seriously injured in road traffic collisions, which is around 46 of those were fatals. We've already had, since the start of January, 15 people killed, with the most recent being last night over in Waltham Abbey. So just when you think of the figures I'm about to give you, it just puts it in some kind of context. So last year there was 36 people in the Maldon district killed or seriously injured. Thankfully, I believe on that there was only 2 people killed, although it's too many, but just to put it into some context. The highest year over the last 5 years has been 2018 with 55. And 2020 was 30, 2019 30, and back to 2017 with 34. So when we talk about serious injury, we were talking about it could be a break of a bone right the way up to a loss of a limb. And a fatality is anything that's someone that's died within 30 days of a recorded road traffic collision. So each one of those deaths in particular leaves trauma to the family and colleagues of the people that have been lost. We know at the moment that cannabis and cocaine is playing a massive part in road traffic collisions. If I tell you that 1 in 3 of our fatalities, normally within that particular incident, at least one person has cocaine or cannabis in their system. We're arresting about 120 people a month at the moment for drug driving, for cannabis and cocaine. And sadly, it's an all too a bigger feature we see every single day on the roads of Essex. But something we really intend to crack on as we move into this year, with some additional capacity that's being brought into the National Forensic Science Service, so we'll be able to do more arrests. That's also good because we also know that those that take drugs and driving, cocaine and cannabis, have previous convictions for other criminal offences. So when we do some studies, about 56% of the people we arrest for drug driving have previous criminal convictions, the biggest group linked to violence. So again, roads policing has a big part to play with disrupting that type of activity. So those are the numbers in the Maldon district. And if we look then at the ages of those, and this is no surprise, the largest group falls within the 16 to 25-year-olds, which is historically what we would see right across the county and right across the country. And then if we look at the modes of transport, this is quite interesting because 92 people have been killed or seriously injured using a car, but where you're quite high is powered two-wheelers, which obviously you've got some very attractive roads out to the Dengie Peninsula. So 41 of those collisions over the last 5 years have been motorcyclists. 21 pedestrians and 19 pedal cyclists. So absolutely we're aware of what the road routes are like out towards the Denshire Peninsula in the summer months, and we will be doing, as we did last year, the teams at Woodham, the motorcycle units, they go out on these routes on Saturdays and Sundays and they take positive action using marked bikes and unmarked bikes. Not just looking at bikes, but also looking at cars. And those routes also extend into the LPA North, so going up into Addlesford and the Braintree district as well, and parts of the B1022. Speed plays a massive factor in road traffic collisions. It's the second highest contributing factor in our recorded collisions. The first being general type of careless, observational type stuff. But speed is massive, and if I was to change that round to just put the contributory factor for young people, so 16 to 25, speed will come out as top. So we know young people, that's car drivers and passengers, are really vulnerable, and your town, and I live in Maldon, so I see it as well, no different from any other market town. It attracts the young drivers that meet in the car parks like Tesco's and then use a bit of a circuit, which poses a risk. But if I tell you that we have to police events mainly in Thurrock, Basildon, Southend, where we're seeing hundreds of cars, so it's quite routine for us to go to Thurrock on a Saturday night. We'll be in excess of 1,000 cars meeting, driven by social media.
Thank God we don't have that.
No. Right, it's just kind of good to put in some good context. Yeah.
It makes me feel a whole lot better.
But a lot of the people that will be taking part in some of the events in Maldon and other market towns will be those that go to these events as well. So that's the type of risk. They're driven by social media. They're spontaneous. They're very difficult to police because we don't know necessarily where they're going to take place. But we do have plans in place all the time for a response procedure involving roads policing officers and community policing team officers. We're also aware of the meets at places like South Hanningfield and over at Abberton, which are straight stretches of road which are used by car cruise groups. So they're a very, very vulnerable group. Move on to the next one. So you'd have seen it over at South Hanningfield. So what we're going to be doing, so what's happened in Essex really is that we have made some really good reductions in KSIs, so killed and seriously injured, over a number of years, but we've plateaued. So we are going with our partners from the Safer Essex Roads Partnership into what's called Vision Zero. So by 2040, we're looking for 0 road deaths and 0 serious injuries from road traffic collisions, which you might think
Very ambitious.
it's very ambitious. However, when I started 20 odd years ago, we were recording 130, 140 people killed every year, and around about 1,300, 1,400 people seriously injured. So we've already come a long way, and we've come a long way for a number of reasons, probably in as much that vehicle safety has become a big part of it. So it is ambitious, and we're not the only force going to be doing this and the only partnership. So Metropolitan Police and Transport for London, Kent, Hertfordshire, Police Scotland. So the whole stance across the whole country is moving towards a Vision Zero. That is going to have to be a total change of how people think about using the road network. And it's underpinned by what they call the safe system approach. And the safe system approach will really look for district councils, county councils to start really thinking about how they plan out the possibility of road traffic collisions on developments, housing developments, new roads, or existing roads. And speed and the enforcement of speed is going to be one of the absolutely most important parts of underpinning Vision Zero. Essex County Council at the moment are redoing their speed management strategy and their route hierarchy, and it is likely we're going to start to see speed limits that we probably haven't seen before, because the hierarchical changes in the highway code are meaning that vulnerable road user groups are going to get a greater level of priority. So it could be some routes which are predominantly used by cyclists or pedestrians, which are going to be rural roads in the main, could come down from de-restricted, so 60 to perhaps 50 or 40. You will potentially see a greater rollout of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in urban areas, and a whole host of other changes. So, and we will need to be doing more speed enforcement. Transport for London, the Metropolitan Police are going to increase their enforcement from 250,000 offences a year to 1 million by 24-25 to underpin Vision Zero. So speed is going to be a really big part. Other parts of it are safe vehicles, because we know that vehicles continually become safer and safer. How we look at our post-collision response, and when you consider potentially over the last 10 years that we're now, with the use of the ambulance service helicopters, how we're now doing operations at the roadsides and really putting in that critical hour where you've got interventions at the roadside that we wouldn't have done just over 10 years ago. Without doubt, some of those interventions are saving lives, without doubt. And that will continue. When we talk about safe roads and safe roadsides, this is an opportunity that, like we try and design out crime in new schemes, we need to try and design out collisions and possibility of casualties. And I've had conversations with Richard before. There's real opportunities. We're going to see such significant development over Essex over the next few years that we need to really consider what developers are building and what it actually means to the local area as to how we enforce what is left once they have gone. And in particular, the introduction of average speed cameras on a wider scale. We will continue to have challenges in enforcing speed, but really we want to have an environment where we have things in place to ensure that vehicle speeds are appropriate to the roads and potentially using average systems. So, you know, within the planning stages, please start to think about possibility of average systems being put in on new roads or developments so that we can absolutely get a level of compliance with the new speed limits that are going to come in. And if we take Maldon High Street, and obviously I know I'm local and I know the 20, and I know there's an intention to get 20 miles an hour on the High Street and Market Hill, we need to really think about how that's going to be enforced. 20 mile an hour are really difficult to enforce without a significant level of enforcement or the ability to actually force vehicle speeds down to 20. There are average speed systems now on the market which can be done over 75 metres in distance and can blend in with the local environment. So they're not the sort of things you see on the M25 or on the A12. So there are products out there that would give you a level of compliance without the need for police intervention or our local authority colleagues from Maldon District Council who enforce, because that's the type of movement we need to start moving towards as we try to go towards Vision Zero. So radical changes ahead. Going to need everyone to have a totally different mindset on how we look around how we use the road, with a greater emphasis on those more vulnerable road users. There is something else we do already as well, and something that perhaps we could start to consider in Maldon. We have a really successful what they call extra eyes system, where members of the public can send in digital images of anything they see on the road which is dangerous or poor behaviour. We get about 330 clips a month from drivers and cyclists who see something on the road which is just not right. We could take that from CCTV as well. So CCTV in Maldon High Street or any other the local authority CCTV, if there's something that the operators see in Chelmsford when they're monitoring it that they don't like, that is dangerous, we can deal with it. And we've got some real success over in Clacton where we successfully prosecuted about 12 people on an industrial estate using CCTV, all for car cruising and racing on the highway. So any sort of dangerous, careless type road user behaviour we could deal with on the extra eyes product. High success rate. We have our own court once a month where people go to court and the magistrates really don't like what they see and they're sending out some really strong messages. So just finally, just a couple of things that are going to really again make a difference in road safety. The mobile phone legislation will be updated on the 25th of March, which will come into place. We have had difficulties enforcing mobile phone use since August 19 when there was an appeal, successful appeal against the use of a mobile phone. And it's all because really that technology continues to rampantly progress and how we use a mobile phone, and the legislation hadn't caught up with that. So lots of loopholes are being tidied up and that will come into being on March the 25th. The most significant thing, though, as part of the police courts, crimes and sentencing bill, there is a section there that there will become a life-term tariff for death by dangerous driving aggravated by drink or drugs. So that's going to be coming in, and I believe it's for Royal Assent this month. So that is a real significant change, and we've probably had 2 recent cases where if that tariff was in, they would have been heading towards a life-term tariff. Both got 12 and 14 years respectively, but probably would have been considered for lifetime tariff otherwise. So lots of things happening, small team, lots more we can do and lots more we want to do with yourselves. The partnership we've got with Maldon District Council is fantastic. The Chief Constable recently reviewed the working relationship and was satisfied that he wants to carry on doing it with Maldon District Council. Just to give you an idea, in February there were 47 deployments by your team, capturing 166 offences. Now this, yeah. So this is not all about catching people. So, you know, this is about being seen. So 166 is great, but if they went and got no one, it's more about being seen. And they are going to locations which are simply brilliant for rural safety, acknowledging actually that most of our serious and fatal road traffic collisions happen in a rural environment. So they're making a fantastic contribution. And other forces across the country come and talk to us about what that type of use of power is. So it's really, really good. That's probably it, because I could ramble on forever if I'm allowed to, but I probably won't.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come in first. I'm a biker.
Pedal cycle or motorcycle?
And I have a very big problem with Vision Zero, as do the Motorcycle Action Group, who you may or may not be aware of. Yeah. And I'm wondering if you've looked at the Welcoming Roads manifesto that's been produced by the Motorcycle Action Group.
No, I haven't seen.
Which they describe as an evolution of Vision Zero, which seeks to preserve the successful aspects whilst shedding unhelpful baggage. Now, Vision Zero as such just excludes motorcycles completely, because we're never going to have a fatality.
But again,
with
we say that, so Vision Zero is an aspiration. But again, like I said a minute ago, when I first joined, we had motorcycle fatalities. That 130, at least half of those would have been motorcycle fatalities. They still equate for 26% of our overall KSIs. That's not just Essex, that's nationally. So we have come a long way, and it probably will be one of our most, not challenging in the right way, of how we're going to get towards Vision Zero for the motorcycle community. So I think we just need to keep looking at where we've come from and where we want to get to, because we have made some real significant, and and what we're looking at, we're doing at the moment a total review of our speed management strategy, because the speed management strategy we're going to be putting in is probably going to try and afford more protection on routes that are used by our more vulnerable road user groups. So I've got a member of my staff at the moment who is engaging with people from various vulnerable groups, which will include the motorcycle community. So it may be that we put a greater presence on some of the routes out to Burnham at weekends, not just to protect yourselves, but also we know that cyclists use the routes at weekends out on the Dengie. So there'll be a greater focus, and that's something we haven't done before. And I have to say, when we go out on those routes, there's a lot of public confidence around what they believe and perceive to be motorcycle issues. We actually catch more car drivers. Very often it's the perceived issue as opposed to the evidence problem.
Motorcyclists are a problem.
So we are absolutely in the early days of Vision Zero, and we will have a lot to learn, but we will need everybody to come on board and engage with us and work with us, because if we can't achieve this on our own. So we did used to have at the county council and through our partnership, MAG used to come on board and have chats with us. So I'm not sure if they do anymore, but
I
we
think the
need to re-engage.
problem is we don't currently have an Essex MAG
Right,
group.
okay.
We don't. There's a southeast one, but they meet in Kent, so there's no actual.
Yep.
I'm too busy, otherwise I probably
Yep.
would. But yeah, I mean, so could I ask you to take a look at Welcoming
Yep, of
Roads
course we'll.
and see
Yep.
how we
Yep.
can?
Yep.
I'm more than happy to send you the link, but I'm sure you can Google it.
Yeah. So
But
within,
it's a sensible. It's a really sensible way forward. So I think perhaps if we could have some kind of elements of
Yeah.
that put in as well. And I'm more than happy to talk to you
Brilliant.
about this
Yep.
from a motorcyclist
No, fantastic.
perspective at
Yep.
any point, and I can always kind of speak to Mag and get
Yep.
information.
Within the
So
Safe Essex Roads Partnership, the fire service lead on our motorcycle safety. So they
I've
do.
done the fire bike.
You've done the fire.
I've done
Yeah.
a couple of the fire bike
Yeah.
courses. It's
Brilliant.
really difficult, but really good.
Yeah, no, good.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for
No.
that. That's nice.
Thank you. Yeah, really interesting. Some really good work. I know I'm a hot on TrueCam. Love TrueCam. Want to see more of it. And yes, the 20 mile an hour is difficult, but there are places that it can be done. We need to be targeting in our high street and on our hill. Whenever we do, we get good results. And yep, there's a lot of action on Facebook. Where do you feel, or if you feel anything at all, or have any view on speed watch, which is another element that I'd like to see more actively engaged with in the town, but also in some of our rural villages. I know it exists. I've been having some conversations with Janet.
We
Yeah,
used to do
thank
it in
you, Wiley.
Burnham. We got experts in Burnham.
I know that there are, that you have to have 10 people and all the rest of it. It's currently being run by an 87-year-old, which is not ideal. We need more people involved with it. We need younger people involved with it. We need it to be higher profile and easier to actually access. Help.
Okay, so
Thank you.
again, the fire service have taken the lead on this, and it is working. Since we've come out of COVID, it's working quite well. So we've got 120 groups now with 1,200 volunteers, and we're trying to get 3 groups live every single month because we've got quite a few people that need to come on board.
I know there's a big backlog, isn't
Yeah,
there?
so we are getting through that backlog. So it's a very much done in the spirit of Essex County Council road safety officers are also involved on the training, so we can get groups live. The fire service lead, which then leaves us to come and do some of the enforcement. So absolutely we want more groups to come on board. We always have struggled with the level of expectation and what community speed watch groups and what they want and what they ultimately expect. What we've always struggled on is giving them that level of support to come and do some enforcement alongside them from time to time. So we've got.
Sorry, I was going to jump in there and say, can that work with TrueCam, for example?
So first of all, Chief Counsel's made it very clear we will not be giving TrueCam any enforcement for enforcement purposes to volunteers.
Okay.
But I do,
No,
yeah, but I do know that the Maldon District Council community protection officers can go and support those groups, and I think they do because some of the sites are similar. We've got an uplift on some posts which will start to improve our ability to go out and do some more enforcement. So within the speed management strategy, there's some additional posts coming online. So we will have an ability to go out and service some of those groups more. So they'll go out to community speed watch groups as well as some of those groups we were talking about a minute ago around some of the routes for vulnerable road users and enforcing some of our historic sort of KSI routes. So that is definitely going to help us put the vision and support back out there and probably meet some of their expectations. But we'll never be in a position where volunteers will be able to enforce. It will always be a monitoring. But it's just how we can start to further improve that level of confidence, that how we're sort of being seen to support them.
Yeah, no, that's great.
There's another device which I know we've spoken about previously. We've just started using a new device similar to TrueCam, but we can actually use at night. So it's based on the same principles of TrueCam, but we can use it in the dark, which is a game changer.
That is a game changer.
Yeah, so Stanway, our road policing unit, have just taken delivery. They've got 18 people just been trained and they've started to use it. So again, for places like Maldon High Street and some of the other rural areas, the Causeway, Colchester Road, Goldhanger Road, it's going to be ideal. Again, we don't want to catch anyone, but it's a tool that can be used to really address some of the sort of most at-risk areas.
We need to start slowing some of these drivers down. And yes, I think your age bracket is the target. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and maybe point me in the right direction, is towards you talked earlier about, I think they're called VASs or VASs. I'm not familiar with them. But they're the 30 miles an hour, they smile, they've either got smiley faces or they've got their numbers or whatever. Are they a useful tool or are they just an expensive toy?
So I think they have their place. However, drivers are very aware that over time they're just like a warning really, and they probably lose their impact. They're probably better if they can be moved around, so they're not in one permanent place. But really, I think now the technology is old and it's moved on. If I go back to the average system, there are, in time, you could have an average system over a very, very short distance, which will give you total compliance. But there's no better speed enforcement measure than an average speed system. And technology is there now. I mean, you could have an average system over 75 metres only, which would give you a very strong level of compliance. And that's got to be the way forward.
Briefly, Councillor Banks.
Would something like that work in the high street?
100%.
We'll talk later.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Hyatt? Councillor Hugo?
Yeah, so I agreed with everything you said, and it's the old adage when all people die and have accidents because they cannot stop in the distance they can see clear, and you know that, I know that. I was a class 1 driver, so everything that you talk about is spot on.
Yeah, tragically, there are very few fatal road traffic collisions that we deal with where we generally see this like it's a genuine accident, and the consequence and the tragedy, not only from the victims and the families, but actually the officers. My officers see far too much tragedy, and it does affect them, and we have to really think about what they see, because we doesn't leave them, and we've got some very, very young workforce at the moment, and it's tough. But yeah, I just wish people could start to realise that tragedy and that loss that's there, and that will be happening this morning after the fatal up in Waltham Abbey.
Thank you. Briefly, if you would, I'm keen to hear from Chief Inspector Scott Haynes before his phone goes off again.
You know I don't do briefly. Well, I know you say it's out of date, but I'm always getting smiley faces. I think it's a psychological.
I love
you get
them.
People like the fact that they got a smiley face.
Yeah.
It's all well and good catching all these people, but it's probably, I don't know. Do the police? Do the police have any sort of say in the CPS? The point I'm trying to make is, how long are all of these queues for courts now? If we're going to be catching all these people, it could be like 10 years' time. They say, we take you to court.
So one of the things that happened a few years ago, as you probably know, you could be referred onto driver improvement scheme. So the idea of that was to take out a large number of people that are deemed to be low-end offending and taking them out of the criminal justice system, so it doesn't clog up the criminal justice system, but also puts education back into those people that offend at the lower end. So there definitely are delays in the court system at the moment. We've just had some fatals that have gone to court, which were 4 years old, but our court backlogs now are far better than they were. We're bringing people to justice quite quickly. I was speaking to my team today at Billericay, and they're booking court cases for careless into the months of May, which is brilliant, because previous it would have been a bit further ahead than that. So yeah, it's something we're constantly looking at, but that's not a problem. That legislation there with the tariff will be fantastic for life term for some of that, and we've had some recent results in court where the sentence is absolutely spot on for the seriousness of the offence.
I must admit, I'm aware of the new rules with cyclists and pedestrians and whatever, and keep getting in my way. But basically, I've seen quite a bit, because obviously I'm not a marked police car. The public do see a lot of rubbish going on, like not waiting for pedestrians, cutting, and all the bikes, all that sort of stuff. So, I'm started muttering at them, but it don't do much. But so that was that point. And the other thing I was going to ask was, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to work out that unmarked police cars are going to see a lot more than all the stripes. And if they could be kept for things like road accidents and serious cases, but have a few, well, say a few more, a lot more unmarked police cars, you're going to catch a lot more people. I mean, you see round that roundabout by Tesco's, it's like Santa Pod at a certain time of night. You know the times I'm talking about. And the thing is, if they see a police car, they're going to slow down.
That's rather the point, though, isn't it?
Well, the
We
point
don't
is, it would
necessarily
be
want to
nice.
catch people. We want to stop them. It doesn't matter how we stop them, as long as we stop.
Yeah, but if it's an unmarked police car, they're going to catch a lot more people because they're not looking out for an unmarked police car.
No, but
I know
the
it's
point- the point is
underhanded
that
and
we
what have you,
stop
but
them, not that we catch them. So if they see a marked police car, they slow down. Job done.
yeah, but you know that if they're speeding like some sort of muppet, 9 times out of 10, drugs are involved. Trust me.
We do operate a marked, unmarked and marked fleet. So the 13 cars out of Stanway, 3 of them are unmarked, the rest are marked, and there's an unmarked fleet down at Salford and Ferris. So we do use those tactical options depending on what we're going for. And I do know the team from Stanway were over here, I think only last week in the evening, and they did stop a number of vehicles that were linked to that type of activity you're talking about. And just finally, we are, to sort of address some of that behaviour, we just invested £1.5 million for the PFCC into the entire fleet within Operational Policing Command, which includes roads, dogs, armed response. We're all going to have Axon Fleet 3 cameras in the cars, so forward and rear, because at the moment we don't have cameras in our cars. So that's going to be a real game changer as to how we deal with some of the offences that we identify.
Thank you. That's Richard.
Sorry, I'm on a roll now. You got me going.
No, not you.
It's basically, as you know, fairly soon we've got to make a decision on the Maldon police station, whether it's going to become businesses or whatever. I'm a firm believer in that if you have local police, I mean, I know you said that the building was out of date and the technology wasn't there, whatever. But now, if you arrest someone, they've got to go to Basildon. They couldn't go to Chelmsford because you've refurbished it all. But it seems to me a false negative in as much as you've got no holding cells or anything locally. I mean, Wickham Bishops is shut. I don't know if Burnham's still got a police station.
No. You've moved on to Inspector Scott Haynes' questions now, Councillor B, or you've
Got him
you're
going.
ahead of yourself. Chief Inspector, would you like to answer that?
Let me answer that and hope the phone doesn't go off.
Yeah.
That's
That's
almost guaranteed.
Right
isn't it?
over to you.
Almost guaranteed, isn't it? So the estates issue within Essex Police is something that is out of my control. What was Maldon Police Station has been sold. We no longer own that site. There's nothing we can do about that. On the other hand, part of the information I'm going to give you tonight is the expansion of our space here at the council offices, which has now been agreed. The space has been identified, which will double our footprint, and also an increase in policing numbers through the town centre team being increased as a community policing team. So we are looking at these as to custody spots. The investment in our custody blocks has been phenomenal. It's taken a lot of money for us to get all of our cells up to standard. Chelmsford Police Station is now open. All 15 cells are open. As part of that refurbishment, we've put CCTV cameras in so that we spend less time with our officers literally babysitting people who are in custody and have issues, whether that's medical or mental health issues. So we continue to invest in the right places. So someone arrested in Maldon, Dengie area will probably go to Chelmsford, but could go to any station in the force because that is the right thing to do so that we put people where they are. But investment wise, yes, there was a move away, but that has certainly increased. And as I go through my piece, I'll fill you in on more details of that.
Thank you. So can we go to you now? Did you have a question? Richard?
Another question, Chair. Just to inform that we're already having discussions around average speed cameras with Adam around new planning developments. So that's started, and quite interested to explore there's a mobile average speed cameras through the work of this community safety partnership. So it's on our list of discussion points. So.
Excellent, thank you. So yes, in the hope that the phone doesn't go off again, over to you, Chief Inspector. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and my apologies for 2 phone calls. Unfortunately, I'm the force duty officer at the moment as well. So, Maldon policing. I'll step back a bit after the councillor's question and start with the good stuff that's coming to try and get through that. Since I got here, first as your community policing team inspector, 3 years ago, seemed like 5 minutes. Now, as the district commander, from day one, I've said I wanted a community policing team presence back in Maldon. And I fought for that and fought for that. In the latest precept, I have received there are 78 officers being brought into the force specifically to increase town centre teams. I've got 5 of those for Maldon. So I've got a sergeant and 4 PCs who will join the 2 PCs we currently have, which will give us 1 sergeant and 6 as a proper community team established here in Maldon, covering the whole of the area and the Dengie. To go alongside that with Mr. Holmes's excellent help, we have now identified, had all the budget and everything agreed to double the footprint of the police presence here. So it's taken 3 years, but we're there. We've got it. So that's the first thing. So that's a really good piece of news for us and one that we've really pushed for. How are things going? How are we currently looking? I've got January's figures, sadly, because February's haven't come through to me. We have seen a crime increase, a fully expected crime increase.
Been on holiday.
Yes, fully expected crime increase with lockdown easing. We knew that crime had severely gone down, significantly gone down. At the end of January, our percentage difference was just under 1% increase in crime. The force has had 7% increase in crime.
Oh,
So we're still significantly lower than the force, and that will continue to be. Per head of capita, we have got the 2nd lowest crime rate in the county. Following on from Oxford. It's really small.
No, did it?
It's really small. So, I often say that to the district commander, he doesn't like it. So, any increase in crime isn't good. We don't want to see it, but we fully expected it. What we have seen, though, is this massive decrease in antisocial behaviour. We know a lot of that is around the change to COVID restrictions, but a 37% decrease, over 400 less incidents reported to us as the police. I know that as the council, some of you have taken some of those over. The types of crimes that we've seen reduced, come down, are the what we call state-based crimes. So these are the crimes where there is not a specific victim. So if we find someone holding drugs, if we find someone holding an offensive weapon, public order offences, those offences have come down. That fits with lockdown, less interactions, etc., etc. Sadly, the offences that have gone up have been around violence with injuries, stalking and harassment, very much domestic related offences we have seen go up. What we didn't see, which we all expected, was this to be kind of an explosion of domestic violence. It didn't happen like that. There was a slow creep, and it hasn't been as high numbers as we expect it to be. Any increase is bad increase. Yeah, which it's done that. What we have also seen is a massive decrease in burglary, particularly residential burglary. Again, fully expected, people are living at home through the lockdown. But that isn't changing at the moment. So we're not seeing that creep up.
Yeah, still a lot of people working at home.
There are a lot of people working at home, but
Passport
that
office,
isn't
for
creeping
example.
up. Yeah. So that's continuing. Theft from vehicles, theft of vehicles, again, still low, which strangely has seen an increase in Chelmsford. So just down the road, we're seeing an increase in that. That hasn't come this way as of yet. Criminal damage offences are now starting to creep up, which again we would expect as people are coming out again. So the things that are going on with the team at the moment, ongoing reports regarding vehicles driving antisocially. We've covered this quite significantly. The community policing team did an operation in February which led to 2 vehicles being seized. That was particularly centred around the High Street, so you're aware. Ongoing operations in and around Maldon and the district for drug dealing. We've had an increase in our stop and search and intel gathering. Most importantly out of that, our positive stop searches are running at around 33%. The national average is 25%. So the information we're getting from yourselves is pointing us to the right people more often than not. So when we're doing those searches, which are intelligence led, we're getting the results we want from them. So that's what's, and it may not always be drugs that we find. It may be that we find a weapon. It may be that actually we don't find anything, but we discover that this person is wanted. So that would be a positive outcome. We continue with our partnership work around disrupting drugs lines. As I've explained before, in this area, we have got much more of a homegrown drug issue as opposed to county lines coming in. Chelmsford very much county line based. Ours is much more homegrown, much more along the lines of cocaine use rather than crack and heroin. I can say that. But again, we're having some significant arrests in relation to that. Obviously, we're planning the day of action. We're coming to that, so we're aware of that. We've also had an increase in antisocial behaviour concerns around rural areas, and over the last 4 weeks, the team have been working on that, and that those antisocial behaviour reports have started to reduce now, which we're seeing. We've also redesignated some officers to the high schools because we've had some concerns about anti-vax protesters attending schools. Although that was quite short-lived.
Yeah.
So, but they are the main points. What I'd add is we do our confidence survey on a quarterly basis, and the key findings from that, which help me to see that we are aiming at the right things. So confidence in receiving a good service from the police is at 75%. That is the highest it's been since December 2018. So it's increasing. Police in the area are doing a good or excellent job is at 83%, which is the highest it's ever been at in the Maldon district.
It's encouraging.
Feel that crime and antisocial behaviour have become more of a problem. That's reduced down to 23%, the lowest it's ever been. So again, that's moving the right way. Feel informed about that the police are doing in my local area. Last month we had, or the last time this was done, that was at 63%. We've had a significant drop down to 47%. So I'm failing in getting that message out. And there's been a change in the last quarter, and I don't know what that is, because our newsletter has continued, our social media footprint has grown, our Coffee with Cops is now back.
We've had that.
So there's something I'm missing in getting that message out. So if any suggestions
I don't know what it is.
would be gratefully received, because I thought we were there.
Ask around the community. What we got to do, isn't it?
Yep,
Yeah,
I thought we were there.
Just a little bit before we move on from the figures, a little bit concerned about the, I've lost it now. racial and religiously aggravated offences.
Yeah, up
There's
by
a shocking increase in
yeah, a huge increase, up by 23.
What are the actual
I
numbers
can
though?
give you the actual
Because
numbers
it's related to
are,
the actual numbers, isn't it? You know, if you go from 1 to 1 to 2,
Gone
then
from 16 to 39.
16 to 39. Yeah.
okay.
It's quite big.
Yeah, that's quite big.
It's pretty great. It is quite big, 143%.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first part of the answer I'm going to give is, in some respects, it's pleasing because we're getting them reported.
Yeah.
Yep.
That
is
has certainly
true.
changed.
That
We
is
know it was an area that was massively underreported, and we can see that by last year's figures. That's massively underreported. We know we have had specific issues around a couple of premises, shops, where shopkeepers have been abused. Certainly one in the high street,
Really?
which was
Oh.
which was children.
Oh, God.
So being abusive to storekeepers. We're trying to redirect in those cases.
Yeah.
One of the things that we have really tried to build across our IAG and counselling, you'll know this because again I asked the question at our last IAG. We don't really have a link with the gay community, either in Maldon or in the Chelmsford side at our independent advisory group, and we know some of these offences are through that.
Right.
So we're trying to develop those links so that we can see a way of
Could do.
I'll
building our
teach you about that
our
separately.
prevention.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, a concerning increase, but some of that increase is because people are more
Because we're
prepared
reporting.
to come forward and tell us about it.
Thank you. And I mean, it's positive that we're getting into schools because that's where it needs to happen, isn't it? We need to talk to, well, yeah, get them whilst they are young. Thank you, Councillor Knight.
Yeah, all I was going to say was I'm a bit concerned about you talking about a store in the town and a racial or hate aggravation, abuse, whatever, and it being young people. We need to. Are we liaising with schools on this? I mean, I'm teaching you to suck eggs. I'm not. I'm just asking the question that is being looked at actively.
Absolutely. So there have been this particular issue, another issue that the chair highlighted to me. In both cases, we've got into the schools. This was exactly the stuff in Maldon. It was exactly the stuff you would expect. Kids coming out of school on the way home. Yeah. So we've got into the schools, working with Spencer's team as well to make sure that we're getting the message across in two ways, not just as an enforcement.
Yeah.
We're doing the education.
Yeah, which
It's
is
the
the key.
education
That's the
that's
key. That is the key.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So, you
Yeah.
did.
That
You
is
did.
what we're helps if you can hear me. So that's how we're progressing forward. We've talked through all of the areas I was going to talk through the work that we were going forward, which is still around neighbourhood watch increase, the fact that coffee cops are back, our links in with the schools, the engagement day coming up in the Easter with bike marking, speeding, which we've already discussed, the number of warrants, the fact that we're executing warrants on drugs, and antisocial behaviour reported in the particularly Southminster and Bradwell,
Yeah,
recently targeted by officers and the tri-service officer.
Les.
I think my CPT inspector has been a little bit thinking a little bit too much because in her view it's been resolved. I'd say that we've reduced it.
Reduced it.
I'd say we've reduced it. There's still work to do. So happy for any questions.
Thank you. I know there were some questions from Councillor Stamp. I believe they're being dealt with just for the minutes and the recording. Are they being addressed separately, Mr. Hines?
Chairman, yes, I'll write to you, Chief Inspector, and then he can obviously respond to the Director Councillor Stamp.
Thank you
problem.
very much. So, over to you, members. Councillor Huebner first.
Yeah, so great news, as you say. What's going to happen in the high street then with the a shop you're taking over, or? What's going to be
It's
happening?
here, isn't it?
No. The team's coming in here, so it's actually coming into the council building. So we currently have our local policing team, so the 24/7 guys. They're based here. The space hasn't been adequate for a considerable amount of time because of the increase in officer numbers, the excellent support we get with our special constabulary and their numbers. So we've been looking to grow the space anyway, and now with these extra officers, we need to grow the space. So my understanding is we're at the final stages of writing up the agreements, and I'm told I had a meeting with our estates board, and they said 2 months to get everything in place, around fittings, IT, etc., etc. So the space will be there. Hasten to add, the officers won't be there
Just yet.
as quickly.
That's fantastic news. Thank you.
So-
Can I come back?
Yeah, is that in these offices here? Is it? Yeah,
Yeah,
I understand that.
yeah, in these offices here. So the next thing is to convince our transport team to give me some more vehicles.
Yes, please.
That's the next one.
Slowly.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Beale, you
So I presume we're not going to have any tents out on the back garden there then. No, you're going to get a few solid buildings.
police marquees now.
I'm really, really pleased to hear that we're increasing the community policing team. I mean, I used to have, I think she was Romanian, but she was a CPSO. And she used to get so much information from just walking around the community, you know, around the precinct, around our estate and that, and she got a lot of feedback. But unfortunately, she left the police force, rather stupidly, to become a parish councillor or something.
Don't want to do that.
But yeah, she's not doing that either now. But I'm really, really pleased at the community team, because they really do get in with the community and get a lot of feedback. And I have missed that.
Def.
No, absolutely, and yeah, as I say, for the 3 years I've been here, I've been trying to get that, so it feels like a real win at the moment. So yes.
Thank you.
And that was positive.
That's brilliant. It's lovely to end on a positive, isn't it? It really.
So much for your 5-minute meeting.
I know. Listen, thank you so much. I mean, I'm sure members were happy to note all the reports and updates that we've been that we've
noted.
received. They're all noted. Gentlemen, thank you so much for giving up your very valuable time to come and talk to us tonight. It really is greatly appreciated, and I'll talk more to you about a gay community liaison, and I'll talk more to you about bikes, if that's okay.
And I'll talk to you about.
She'll talk to you about lots of things.
Yeah, lots of things.
So, I
Some of you, all of you, Crime Stoppers meetings. Yeah.
and we'll see Councillor Humer at the Crime Stoppers meeting. So I don't have any other items of business that are urgent. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again, and I now draw the meeting to a close at 20:22.